Do I have some kiddos who would like to help us light the chalice this morning? We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maya Kraushar, and I'm the Director of Programming and Community Outreach here at UUCGV. Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Maya Kraushar. I'm the Director of Programming here at UUCGV, and I'd like to welcome the kids to come up for our Time for All Ages. So our theme this month is Liberating Love. Can you guys think of a symbol or something that comes to mind when you think of the word love?
A heart?
A heart. That's what I was thinking. And I happen to have one in my pocket. Okay, so I have this beautiful wooden heart here. I'm just going to change this a little bit so people on Zoom can see us. Okay, so what are some things that come to mind when you think about ways of expressing love, or what does love mean?
Love means that you kind of, I don't know.
Sigva, what does love mean?
This is Halloween.
You love Halloween. You absolutely love Halloween. Any other ideas of a way to express love, or how does love make you feel, or how does love make other people feel?
It makes them feel happy.
Happiness, joy, security, comfort, maybe that you've been listened to, maybe that you're understood. So these are all ways that this little symbol can make us feel. And so when we express those things or share those things, it only increases them. It only cultivates more. It's almost like love is a magnet. So as you spread more love out and open up your heart, you build more love. Other hearts become more open. And so it's sort of like a magnet. And that's actually what this is. This is a little magnet. So let's put this to the test. I have some paper clips here. Why don't you each hold a couple in your hands? And then hold your palm like this. Sigva, do you want to hold a couple paper clips? So let's see what happens. Here, hold a couple. Hold them in your hand like this so your palm is open. So let's see what happens when I walk by and I express love or compassion or warmth towards you. Will this magnet attract more love? What's happening here? This heart is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden, yeah, you can play with that now. So what happens if it just keeps collecting more? Does it stop at a certain point? Is it like, okay, I'm big enough, this is it, I'm done? What happens? It just keeps expanding?
What if it gets too big?
I don't think it can get too big. I think it's sort of like infinity. It can just keep unfolding. So let's put it to the test, just so we know. I have a really big heart here. So, Sigva, will you help me by dumping all of these paper clips on the floor? Dump the whole box. Sigva, dump the whole box on the floor right there. Okay, now everyone stand back. The big love movement's coming through. And let's see. All right, everyone watch out. Here we come. It just keeps getting bigger and cultivating more and becoming more expansive and attracting more love and sharing more love and spreading more love. Excuse me, love coming through. Until it's just enormous. And it's making everyone smile. And so as we return to our chairs and we sit today and we listen to some of the experiences that Barb has had, I want us to practice love. Sigva, I want us to practice love by listening.
So I just speak from here,
Keep in mind, this is what you look like. So.
and they'll pick it up. Yeah. Well, speaking of love, I would like to give you a poem by Dr. Rifat Alarir. I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering his name since I don't speak Arabic, but that's as close as I can come. He was so beloved in Palestine, I think because he loved so many things. He loved to teach. He taught thousands of students. He was a professor at the Islamic University in Gaza. He had a huge family. He was a father, and he was a poet. And so they called him the voice of Gaza. But the Israeli authorities were not as happy with him. And he actually dared to compare the Palestinian suffering with the suffering of the Israelis. I think that got under their skin. When the war started, there were threatening messages on his phone. He knew what was coming. And so this is the last poem he wrote. He wrote, "A friend, we don't even have water. All I have is my pen." And he sent them this poem before his apartment building was bombed. It's called "If I Must Die." If I must die, you must live, to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth with strings, make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking up to heaven's eye and awaiting a dad who fled, who disappeared in a blaze without bidding goodbye to anyone, not even his own flesh, not even himself, looks up and sees a kite, the kite you made flying up above and thinks for a moment there's an angel bringing back love. If I must die, let it be for hope. Let it become a tale.
This community of care is created through our work and time together, our commitment to one another. This is our covenant, to walk together in loving fellowship, to share our hopes and values. As we pass these baskets, we thank you for your generous gifts which support the work of this religious community and Unitarian Universalism in the world at large. With hearts of gratitude, we will now receive today's offering. This congregation is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to its life, we affirm our lives within it. Let us sing together in your gray hymnal, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us.
at our team leadership circle meeting in September, the head of our property team, Barb, Preston, Zind, just casually mentioned that she wouldn't be at the TLC meeting in October because she was going out of town. And, you know, Barb goes out of town a lot. And so we didn't think anything about it. And then on October 7th, we had the news on and we were listening to what was happening in Israel and kind of the fear and the terror that was going on. And I don't remember who, but somebody texted me and said, do you realize that Barb is in Gaza right now? And because Barb is so kind of low-key about all the amazing work that she does, I was like, no, I did not know she was in Gaza, but it doesn't surprise me because she's always doing some amazing work. And so I reached out to her husband, Paul, and said, you know, what's happening? And that started, you know, the open communication. I turned on CNN, and there was our beautiful Barb talking to Wolf Blitzer with a bomb going off in the background. And I still I remember watching you, and you appeared very calm. And he said, do you need to get to a bomb shelter? And Barb said, there are no bomb shelters in Gaza. But it's okay, because I was told by my sister-in-law to go stand in the corner. So I have a corner over here. And that sort of began UUCGV's journey with trying and caring and wanting you to come home. And so I feel really honored today that Barb is here, willing to share a little bit about her experience and her story, because we lived it from a very safe perspective, with our hearts open and our care and wanting Barb to come home, but there are many people that didn't make it home. And so I just want to thank all of you for your support, and I want to thank Paul and everybody, and I want to thank Barb for being here with us today to share a little bit about your experience. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Wendy, and thanks everybody for all the support when I was over there, and I know it meant a lot to Paul too. So I'm going to start with a disclaimer. I'm going to speak probably critically of the Israeli government that is not reflective on any race or culture or religion. It's criticism of a government and their actions. And I'm going to say things a little bit different than what I said last night, because this is my home, right? And so I can be a little more frank. But I'm going to start out with a birthday party. This is the Marna House. This is the hotel that I've been staying at my last few times in Gaza. It's got about 12 rooms, but it's got this lovely garden area. And this picture is about 3 or 4 days after the war started. And Ramona Okamura is a prosthetist, and she was with me. We were the only two people at the hotel. And this was the day when we got a 15-minute notice that we have to, well, we had our stuff in a suitcase, so it wasn't a big packing thing, but that we were packing off and we were going to a UN center where it might be more secure with other humanitarian aid workers. But I told the PCRF, Palestinian Children's Relief Fund person on the phone, I said, we have to wait 15 minutes because it's Ramona's birthday and we're having a party. And so these lovely employees of the hotel who had been really taking care of us, and that's one reason I was really calm, was that they would, every time a bomb went off, they'd go, no problem, no problem. And so I just thought, I'm just being hysterical, you know. So anyway, this is right before they sang happy birthday to Ramona, and they found some cake and just, you know, just lovely, lovely young men. The night before, on October 6th, when I arrived in Gaza, you can One reason I put this up is because you can kind of see all the chairs in that garden area. It's a small hotel, but it is a hangout spot. And so on Friday night, after prayers are done, families go out and they're having tea and smoking hookah, and their kids are just running around with their outside voices, just, noisy, chaotic, but just beautiful. And I just love it. And so that was October 6th. Next slide, I think. Oh. Okay, don't show the video yet. So I took out a slide. So, and as you know, the next morning I was walking on the beach and we could see missiles going out from Gaza in towards Israel in really all directions. One thing I didn't say last night is that the people I was with and all the people that were walking along the beach too had just this feeling. You could tell that there was a feeling of dread and fear because they knew that when missiles go out, they come back in, 10, 100 times what was going out. And so there was a lot of fear. And you can play the video. This was my hotel room in the Marna house. It doesn't have sound. Well, you missed the boom. Next slide. Oop. I guess next slide. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to jump ahead, and I'm going to read from an email that I had forwarded to me just this past week. And this is from Dr. Collar. He's a pediatrician from Chicago, and he just went to Gaza with Med Global, which is an organization that is sending doctors from outside in right now. And so I just want to read you what he put in his email. He'd been there a couple days. I'm currently in Rafah, southern Gaza. The conditions on the ground resemble a scene in a post-apocalyptic movie. Picture World War II Europe after liberation, Stalingrad after the Soviet, quote, victory, and Japan after the A-bomb. Tens of thousands of people crowded into makeshift tents. They either wait in long lines endlessly for basic essentials or walk around aimlessly. This is the refugee curse. Wait and walk and wait some more. At night, without electricity, the streets remind me of a horror movie. Glowing lights and smoke in a dusty and crowded landscape of destroyed buildings. There is currently an ever-growing outbreak of RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, related acute respiratory illness. The most troublesome manifestation is its lower respiratory manifestation, bronchiolitis. In the past 2 days, I've seen 75 children, all under 3, the majority under 1, and a significant percentage under 3 months. All with cough, of course, but the young ones with bronchiolitis and severe tachypnea to 80 breaths per minute. Luckily, I trained when we didn't have nebulizers, so I know well the natural history of the illness. 100% of these children live in polluted tents, on the streets, or a combination. All are affected by the smoke and pollution. If this is a particularly inflammatory virus, we will lose 2 to 5% of these infants. War deaths? They won't be classified as such, but easily could be. There's a strong correlation between bronchiolitis at less than 6 months with exposure to respiratory pollutants and child and adolescent asthma. We're setting up the next generation of asthmatics. In addition to this, because of the ongoing attacks on infrastructure access to heat, bathroom facilities, and potable water, access to heat, bathroom facilities, and potable water are virtually non-existent. The children have vomiting and diarrhea. From a public health perspective, the prospect of an outbreak of toxigenic E. coli, salmonella, or at worst case, cholera is frightening. There needs to be an end to this bombing now. So how did we get here, right? In this holiest area, how could something so unholy? Next slide. So you have to understand a little bit of the geography. Gaza is that small strip that you can see. It's only like 24 miles long, and it's very narrow. It's maybe 7.5 miles. There's limited access in and out, not anymore, but before you could get in through the Erez crossing in the north, in the south through the Rafah crossing into Egypt, and there was one crossing where trucks passed, the 508 trucks that you've heard go in and out every day. So it's just tiny. Next slide. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how could this happen? And I think to understand that, you have to understand what life is like every day. And I showed this slide last night too, but as you cross the border from Israel at the Erez crossing and go into Gaza, there was this long quarter-mile of fencing that you just need to walk through. And now you take a bus, but for me, walking through it was just a reminder that this is a prison, and it got me ready for the changes that I was going to see between the West Bank and especially driving through Israel to get from the West Bank to Gaza. Next slide. So, and these were the changes. Sometimes there weren't cars, there's horses, there are carts. And why is this? Because it's a closed off community, right? They can't, everything that comes into that area is regulated by the Israeli government and what can get in and out. Right now they're having difficulty with tents. Some tents have materials that could be used for some military something. And so they're having difficulty finding tents that they can get in. And then once they have the tents, getting those tents in. Next slide. Sorry, next slide. This is just to give you an idea of what Gaza City looked like before. You know, it's a city. Looks like a third world city in some essences. Everything is really close together. They have some very nice hotels that were built years ago in the early 2000s that were for when people could freely pass and go to the beach and go to a resort. Next slide. And then there's camels. I love camels, so I always have to pick a picture of them. You don't see as many on the street, but we did see a few this time. Next slide. This is another picture that just at the ocean front. Next slide. So there are Gazans who are been in Gaza for centuries, right? And then there are the Gazans that were displaced from cities that are now in what we call Israel. And so those Gazans live in refugee camps. I have a hard time when I'm there telling which is the refugee camp and which isn't, because everyone is so smashed together, 2.2 million people in that really small area. So I think that's the refugee camp up there that you'll see, one of the refugee camps. There's one in there's several, but just to give you an idea what they might look like. Next. It's another street view. Gaza is so limited, like I said, in things that come in. Their water they have no streams, they have no lakes. Their water all comes in on big pipelines through Israel, 3 big pipelines, and they have an aquifer that has salty water. It's brackish. It's been so drawn out from both Israel and Gaza. So I mention this because 2 of those 3 pipelines were cut off in the very beginning of the war, and the other one was cut back. And now 2 of them are open, but North Gaza has no water at all. Next. And people just make houses out of whatever they can. They recycle everything. When I first went in, there were a lot of apartments. When the settlements left Gaza, they destroyed the apartments and the factories that were there. And so over the years, every time I went through and walked through that fencing area, you could see little carts and horses carrying cement out, and they reused that cement. And now it's a beautiful farm right there. But they recycle everything. Next. Next. And they just use things, so they're just the most resilient people. There also limit on medications, what can come in for that, fuel, all of those things. Right now, there's a siege, but there's always a siege. They always have rolling blackouts where their electricity is off, 4 hours on, 4 hours off, and those are on the good days. And right now, there's no public electricity since October 11th, and people are just using, hospitals are just trying to get fuel to have electricity for them. Next. Fishing is limited, as I mentioned last night. They can't go out and fish the legal limit of the international law, that 24 nautical miles. They can't go out that far, and if they go out further, their boats are confiscated, they're arrested. Sometimes even if they don't even go out too far out, those boats are confiscated and they're arrested. And those limits are changing all the time. Next. Last year I went to visit hospitals, and I just show these because these are so modern. This is Al-Shifa neonatal intensive care unit that you heard about a lot on the news, and those babies that were carried over. Even in the best of time, they have an up-to-date neonatal unit, but they had to put 2 babies to a warmer. So they still, even with all the money coming in and all of these facilities, it's still not even enough on a good day. Next. This is Al-Aqsa Hospital in central Gaza, also with a great neonatal intensive care unit. Next slide. But their pediatric unit had a lot of needs. They only had 1 oximeter for 50 children. They really didn't have materials. They didn't have nebulizers, as many as they needed. They really couldn't, and most of the time they were 150 to 200% over their capacity on a good day before the war started. As of this morning, Al-Aqsa was overwhelmed with patients, but they're having to close because of risk, really. And so they're having to shut down. Patients are going to have to go even further south to what's called the European hospital. It was a big hospital built by Europeans, but they're probably already overwhelmed at the European hospital. But some of the surgeons are having to leave because Al-Aqsa is being told to evacuate that area. Next slide. Next slide. There's always hope. This is the medical school class, and they're bright, and there's 2 medical schools there. It's difficult for them to get out of Gaza. It's difficult for them to get fellowships and get advanced training. There was one medical student that I worked with, a bright young man who wanted to be the first pediatric endocrinologist in Gaza. He went to a conference. He was sponsored to go to a conference on one of the Gulf states, but he was not allowed to. He was asked to speak, and the government did not allow him to speak because they were afraid of what he would say. And he was just going to talk about diabetes, honestly. Next slide. So this is my group. This is my hangout group. We found a little shady spot, and I want to point out Joel in the blue shirt. There were about 4 Africans in our group of humanitarians, and I don't want to generalize to a whole continent, but if the whole continent is like them, they're wonderful. I mean, so. But Joel gave, it was almost like a speech one day, and he was talking about the war, and he said, he's a very bright young man, but he said, you know, I think in the future we're going to look back at this war, and it's going to be a turning point. It's going to be when people are more aware. Sorry. I cried after he gave the speech too, but people are going to be more aware of the issues and what it's like for these people. And that's going to be a turning point. And I hope it is. I hope it is. Next slide. Do I have another slide? Yeah, I do have one more slide. So there's one more thing I want to share with you, because last night we talked a lot about donations and money and what else can you do. So my last visit my visit in 2022, I got to visit a lot of hospitals, and I would go on tours, and there'd be the whole gaggle of medical people with us. And one man handed me a tiny little folded up piece of paper, and he just handed it to me, and he goes, "Don't open this until you leave the hospital." So of course, as soon as I left the hospital and got in the cab with the social worker, we're like, "What does this say? What does this say?" And open it up, and he said, "Tell Americans that we are not all terrorists." So that's what I'm doing. And I'd ask that you do that too. Next slide. So I know I had a title to this sermon, and so I think by spreading the word, maybe we can make this war a turning point for those people. Here are some ideas on places to donate. I volunteer with Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. I'm also on the board of Heal Palestine, which is a 2-week-old organization. ANERA, A-N-E-R-A, I forget what the acronym stands for. They're also bringing things into Gaza. And UNRWA, UN Refugee Works Association. But any of these here, I think, are worthy organizations, and there are more who are doing good work in Palestine. And thank you so much for your support and listening.
For our closing hymn, please turn to number 167 in your gray hymnal. It is a new piece for us, but the choir will be leading, and it is one that we want to learn. So we will be singing it a good 4 or 5 times. Enjoy the learning process. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough for me. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough. Nothing but peace is enough for me.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Made of
Go now in peace. Amen.